descension seems like losing. I thought we're supposed to ascend.
Well, I don't know how you ascend if you don't have a place to ascend from. There's no such thing as ascending and ascending and ascending and ascending. So, Richard Rohr teaches that we don't need to have a new pattern. There's only one, he says. And that pattern is the Paschal mystery. As Christians, we know that means living and dying and rising. I'm sure other faith beliefs have the exact same pattern, and I just don't know the exact language for that. And so I suspect that we oversimplified maybe years ago, living, dying, and rising, and kind of made up that you do each one of those things one time. And living, dying, and rising is all day, every day. And there are whole denominations in Christian understanding who only want to focus on rising, and whole denominations who only want to focus on dying, and some who say, in terms of prosperity gospel understanding, that you don't have to die. And I can't find that anywhere. And it's certainly not true in my life. And so the greatest sadness of my life has come when I refused to let go of something that had served its time or its reason or its purpose, and been faithful enough to wait for what's next. And maybe age teaches you that. But if you don't know to watch for that because an older person told you their story, then seems like you might miss it in a culture that says you can have it all.
How do you learn to die so you can live?
Well, 2 words that we don't use much: allowing and letting go. And I don't ever hear the word allow in our culture, except when people say, you're not allowed to do that. And you and I talked a little bit earlier about the fact that if you don't allow the next thing that God's calling you to, well, then you're going to miss it, because God isn't going to make you do it. I do.
If he loved us, when he just set it up so it's all dialed in?
No, because he loves us. I spent 40 years asking theologians I respect. I keep saying to them over and over, now tell me again about free choice. Tell me again about why we have free choice. Seems like we're messing stuff up. Tell me again why we have free choice. And it's because if you're not free to say no, you're not free to say yes. But the illusion in the West that we're in control of everything is such a thin veil for anybody who wants to look beyond it. It's so obvious that we're not in control. All you have to do is take a 2-year-old to the grocery store to know that you're not in control. I'm really blessed. My parents adopted me. My dad delivered me. And they were older and they were highly evolved. And my dad was a doc and my mom was a nurse, but I watched both of them let go of living as we understand it so gracefully.
How did they do that?
Well,
you remember something what was it that about their letting go?
The thing I just thought of was I adored my dad, and when he was dying, I was kind of draped over him. He died with congestive heart failure, and he was a doctor, so he knew exactly what was happening. And he hadn't talked in about 3 days, and he had a raspy voice from all the fluids. And I had chosen to be the one who stayed with him all night, one night, and I was literally kind of laying on top of him from a chair. And I was crying, and I said, please don't leave me here. And he said, I have to. But I wouldn't if you didn't have Joe. It was him teaching me that life is set up so that I'm leaving, but it's okay, you have Joe. And Joe keeps saying, when I say, don't leave me here, he keeps saying, if I do, you have the kids. It's like they've taught me there's not a leaving without something, and it's all okay. It's just okay. And I was so taken with my dad. I think we all were in my family. He was quiet and wise, and he waited to give you advice if you asked. And I gave him a journal. You know, he died in 1987. And in those days, you know, journals were just then being available, blank journals. They weren't before then. And I bought the nicest leather one I could find. And I gave it to him, and I wrote a note in it, and I gave it to him for his birthday, and I said, please write in this. You know so much that I don't know that I'm dying to know. Would you please just write stuff in here? It'll be the greatest treasure of my life. And when he died, I went straight to it. I watched for it every time I was at their home, which had been my home, and I knew where it was, and when he died, I went straight to get it. And he had written on one page. And he said, anything I've ever done, anything I have become, any accomplishment that I have in life is because of your mother. You ought to get to know her. And my mother was 5 on the Enneagram, which is withdrawing and quiet and hesitant. And I ended up with years to get to know her, and I did it. And it was a life lesson for me of whoever you know that you think is great, get to know the other people they know, and get to know the people who have made them what they are. Because that's always the story. It's always the story of community, that whoever you are, you're that because of the community. And so the bigger the community, the wider your understanding becomes of who you could be. Certainly not who you are, but if you're part of something bigger, then you're bigger, right? Than if you're all by yourself.